Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everybody, and welcome to today's TP Talks webinar. I'm joined today by Peter Ryan and Vicki Brackett, our home agent MythBusters, as they crack a host of home agent hype and share best practices and trends. I'm your moderator today, Terry Reibold. I'm the global lead for our work at home deployment for the company, and I'm going to facilitate the conversation today with Peter and Vicki. Before we get started, a few housekeeping items. There are related resources available for you to view and download in the resources widget to the right of your screen. This webinar is designed to be interactive. You will see multiple icons at the bottom of your console. If you have any questions, as we'd love for you to interact with us, we have received questions during the registrations and are also hoping you submit your questions in the Q&A window on the left of your screen. Do this anytime during the conversation, and we will address them during our designated Q&A session towards the end. Should you have any technical issues, please click on the Help widget. It's the box that looks like the question mark. If you'd like to reach us, please use the email widget. First and foremost, what is TP Talks? As curators of the customer experience, we are pleased to bring you this series of webinars called TP Talks. TP Talks is packaged in 30-minute bite-sized webinar segments and designed to help you as curators of customer experience at your companies to help you learn from best practices, big trends, innovations, and real-world success stories from people like yourselves. Teleperformance has worked diligently with our clients to curate this content for you, and there are several of these available on demand. You can access them in the resource widget to the right of your screen. And speaking of people like yourselves, a little about Teleperformance, your host for today's webinar. Teleperformance has been serving leading industry brands for almost 4 decades. With a focus on supporting our clients in 160 markets around the world, if you've ever called for customer care, engaged in a chat, filled out a form, or posted online about a brand, chances are you've interacted with us. We are a leading company across verticals and channels. This includes customer care, technical support, customer acquisition, digital solutions, analytics, back office, and other specialized services to ensure consistent and positive customer interactions. Why do I share this with you? Because Teleperformance is committed to partnering with our clients to find innovative ways to manage obstacles. And we are committed to helping our clients succeed. This webinar is a reflection of our commitment to that very concept. We're particularly proud of the awards we win and the recognition we get from analysts in various leadership quadrants that are published in the recognition by many of our clients for the ability to help curate their customer experience and make a palpable difference to their brand is a manifestation of our mission. Now on to our speakers today. The work-at-home agent model has rapidly evolved into a highly viable solution for contact centers. However, its adoption across the globe has been slow, owing to concerns with security, loss of control, and employee engagement. Deploying a well-designed home agent program can be instrumental and an important strategy for handling customer interactions. In this session, the speakers will share real-life stories from across the globe on how companies are using home agents successfully. They'll also debunk the lack of security myth and know technology is not the only solution. Illustrate how to use emotional intelligence to lead work at home. Now to introduce Peter. Peter Ryan has been at the forefront of contact center services market advisory for over a decade. Over the course of his career, he has advised contact center outsourcers, their clients, industry associations, and governments on matters ranging from vertical market penetration and service delivery to best practices in offshore positioning. Peter Ryan's expertise in outsourcing has been recognized multiple times and has won many accolades. Welcome, Peter. For Vicki, as a subject matter expert and consultant for work-at-home contact centers, Vicki Brackett assists organizations in improving employee engagement, reducing employee absenteeism and attrition, and achieving higher sales conversion and customer satisfaction. Vicki has authored a new book, The Leadership Toolbox, 14 Strategies to Build a Chain Reaction of Success, and will be available this fall. Welcome to you, Vicki.
Thank you.
Now, before we get started, let's put a poll out there to talk about work at home. Have you deployed a work-at-home agent model? Don't know the model? You're in pilot or testing? You're in full production? You've tried and it's failed. Give it a couple minutes here, a couple seconds for everyone to put their answers in. So we've got a large portion of the group that's in full production, about a third of the group that's in pilot and testing, and a small majority that doesn't know the model. So looking forward to this conversation today to help go through where we're at here to share some best practices. So Peter, let me start with you. You recently put out a omnibus survey that talked about the value of work at home. Where do you see it at? Where do you see work at home today? And what do you think about the deployment strategy that's out there?
Well, Terry, first of all, thank you so much for including me in this very auspicious webinar today. I'm absolutely delighted to be able to chat a little bit about a subject, i.e. home agents, that I've been very passionate about for the better part of the last 12 years since I started covering it as an analyst. Now, I think that the poll that we've just seen is very indicative of the extent to which work at home has evolved over the course of the past 10, 15 years as a business model when it comes to customer experience management. I mean, the very fact that we had approximately 5% of the attendees to today's event that don't know what work at home is actually about speaks volumes to the extent to which it's become part of the popular culture when it comes to contact center delivery. And I'll speak from a market analyst standpoint, a role I've been in since 2003. It's very rare that I have ever seen any type of a business model or technology take off as rapidly and as consistently as what I've seen with home-based agents. When I think about the fact that when this business model started, perhaps back in the early part of the 2000s, it was really associated with the retail space. So many retail outlets saw it as a great way of managing the ramp up and ramp down when it came to seasonality. But now we're seeing so many different industries use it, whether it's telecommunications, whether it's high-end financial services, the healthcare sector. We're seeing companies involved in the digital, I would call them born digital organizations. Companies that were born on the internet are taking on home agents as well. And they're using it not just for customer experience management. There's also technical support. There's also elements about digital support that's being done by agents working out of their homes. And to my mind, that speaks tremendously to the dexterity that this business model, people working virtually from their homes, can bring to customer experience management, can bring to generating loyalty. The fact that it's becoming not just something that's, I would say, an established business model in the United States, but it's starting to dissipate around to different geographies as well. We're seeing more of it in Canada, where I live. We're seeing more of it popping up in Western Europe. Even south of the U.S. border, work at home is starting to gain some traction. And as far as I'm concerned, it really speaks to the ability to generate loyalty. It speaks to the quality of agents that home-based agent organizers are able to recruit. And it speaks to the long-term value that this business model is able to bring brands across the spectrum. And I'd be very curious to hear thoughts from Vicki as well, somebody who comes to the market from a different angle than I do, but certainly has a great breadth of experience in terms of what she's seeing in regards to where work at home sits in the market currently.
Thanks so much, Peter, and Terry, thanks for having me. I love work at home. I've been working in that environment since 2001. What I'm seeing in the industry from an operational perspective is that companies are struggling with trying to duplicate the brick and mortar feeling in their work at home environment. And so I've identified three specific areas where they seem to be struggling the most. The first is the supervisor setting the stage. We all know how important that role is. and what type of person is better in that role. And it's a highly engaged individual, in my experience, that doesn't like paperwork, that really loves to talk and chat with people, to highly engage them, creating that brick and mortar, experience. The second is the virtual shock. We put a people person at home in their pajamas to help customers, and reality sets in that they're alone, and performance will start to slide, and you can actually chart this and track this from an analytical perspective and see the trends of when that happens in your organization by looking at the numbers of performance in your new hire classes. And then you're developing strong communication strategies for engagement in certain events. And the third is career pathing. They're struggling with the career pathing on how to get people prepared to move up the ladder. And those are the three things I'm seeing people struggle with inside this space.
It's interesting. I was just reading an Everest Group report that came out where they talked about work at home has been the fastest growing segment within the contact center outsourcing market, growing 13 to 19% per year over the last 2 years. And it sounds like everything that you're saying is absolutely happening in the marketplace. Peter, your omnibus survey talked about work at home as being a critical service offering for providers out there to be able to win new business from clients. You care to elaborate on that?
Absolutely. And let me just say that what the numbers that you referenced, Terry, that Everest has published recently are very consistent with the tracking that I've done of the market historically. And certainly those growth rates, I think we can all agree, are probably more or less above what the bricks and mortar outsourced contact center space is facing in terms of growth right now. Now, in terms of the Omnibus survey, for a little bit of background to our friends who are on the webinar today, we at Ryan Strategic Advisory, with a survey partner, surveyed approximately 350 contact center buyers of contact center services in the US, Canada, the United Kingdom, and Australia. What we found was, when we were asking the question about what attributes an outsourcer needed to bring to the table to be competitive as a contact center services provider in the current market, being able to provide work at home was out of approximately 20 to 25 options, work at home was in the top 5. In some locations, it was the second most important factor. I think what this does is it really outlines the fact that the clients of contact center providers, the clients of contact center service providers, are very interested now in looking at perhaps business models that weren't traditional over the course of the past 2 decades, but ones that have proven their value in regards to the quality of agents that can be sourced, in terms of the quality of delivery that can be provided to end users, and the loyalty that can be generated on the back of that. And Terry, let's not forget either that in most Western economies, most key demand markets, unemployment rates are at record lows. So being able to find the right people to work in a bricks and mortar center, and to be able to keep those people in a bricks and mortar center, especially domestically, is a big challenge. So work at home effectively opens up the opportunity to a whole segment of the labor force that perhaps otherwise wouldn't go work in a bricks and mortar operation, but might be more than happy to work from the comfort of their own home as a virtual agent, providing services across a variety of different markets.
Thank you. Vicki, this is a question that came in from the group that I just wanted, while we're on this topic, I wanted to ask you the question. Do you see any best practices for hiring and identifying home agents versus brick and mortar agents? It's a 3-part question. And do you hire directly into work from home, or require agents to first spend time on site in the office? And thirdly, how do we increase engagement with at-home agents? I think that's a good question. On the last question we can bring up later. But any best practices that you've seen, Vicki, operationally from hiring work at home employees?
Yes, Terry, thank you for asking. I think there's 2 ways you can look at it. You can do a hub and spoke, where you hire people and they're trained in a physical location and then you send them home, or you can actually do the training remotely while they're working at home. And I've seen both work successfully, and there's pros and cons to both. I think where I'm seeing it really head is where people are actually hiring, recruiting, and training with folks that are in their home, all the way from the beginning of the sourcing process. And the types of people that you want to hire in that environment are highly engaged people, but people that like to work independently. By having them engaged, they're going to engage with their customers on the phone or email or chat, engage with each other. And I think that's important, and I'm seeing more and more companies do that by looking at a hiring profile and by getting people used to going through the interview process in a 100% virtual environment themselves, all the way from setting up their systems to testing their systems to doing information sessions and then ultimately the training. And I think the sooner you get them involved in that type of process, the more they get used to settling into that environment, and you can identify the virtual shock quicker and be able to engage them in different ways so that they'll stay and they'll do a good job serving customers. Peter, do you have anything to add about that?
No, I mean, I think you've nailed it, Vicki. I think what you've laid out there is really, I think, a very good way in terms of being able to identify the right people, bring them in, and make sure that once they have been recruited to work at home, that they're going to enjoy the process. And that's, I think, probably one of the most important fundamentals to getting this business model right. It's not, the planning is everything. And, you know, the devil's always in the detail. And I've always been a big believer in that philosophy, but nowhere more than I think in the contact center space that when it comes to making work at home work properly.
Thank you both. Let's move to the next question here. In my travels around the world talking about this particular subject, it comes up virtually every time. And so, Peter, I want to start this with you. Can't ensure security with agents at home. If it's not technology, then how can one create a secure home agent environment? What are your thoughts on this? Well,
you know, Terry, it's interesting. Much like you, I've had the privilege of traveling around the world and talking about the contact center space to audiences that have a completely different view, location to location. But one thing that always comes up when you bring up the home agent business model is the concern about security. And look, I get it. Security is an omnipresent fact of life in today's commercial environment, and for our personal lives as well. You know, speaking as somebody who has had the unfortunate circumstance of having their credit hacked in the not too distant past, it's no fun. So it's understandable that when you're talking about literally thousands or millions of consumers that might be doing business with an enterprise, that the customer experience managers are going to bring this up. But I would argue that home-based agent delivery and the companies providing home-based agents have done an exceptional job in addressing the security concerns. And there shouldn't be any question that technology is a big part of it, whether we're talking about the application of virtual desktops, or whether we're talking about the capacity to lock down a terminal remotely, if perhaps somebody is doing something that they shouldn't be, or even the screen scraping technology that's existed for a while that provides a good indicator about how a home-based agent might be acting. Those are all very important. But I want to go back to what Vicki was talking about a few minutes ago, because it resonated when she used the word profile. And profile of the agent is crucial in terms of figuring out what agent you really want working for your organization. Now, the good news is that the individuals that tend to work as home-based agents have a profile where they have a significant amount of work experience. They've got a proven track record in the workplace. They tend to be a little bit older than the individuals that might be working in a bricks and mortar operation, and they tend to have higher levels of education, all which point to a quality of agent that is very sound and somebody that's proven themselves to have had a very good ability to do a job and to be reliable. Now, going beyond that, I think that providers that are doing home-based working right now have been very stringent in terms of making sure that the right credit checks are being done, that the right security and police checks are being done to make sure that agents don't have any issues with regards to previous convictions or have any warrants outstanding, and making sure that the reference checks are done in a expeditious but also a thorough manner. These have been exceptional in making sure that the home-based agent model has been relatively, well, not relatively, but very resistant to security problems, to security breaches, or to fraudulent activity. And, from the perspective of somebody who's been involved in operations, I'd love to get Vicky's thoughts in terms of how what we're seeing in the home-based agent market as it comes down to the application of security and the prevention of any nefarious activities, what she's seen in her experience working with providers that have been providing this home-based model.
Oh, thanks, Peter. To your point, the technology and the systems that are on the market are critical in the work at home. What I'm seeing, though, is that the employee engagement piece is extremely important. When people value working at home, they're going to protect that. They don't want to lose their job, and they don't want to lose the benefits of being able to work from their home. So what I've seen is that employees that feel that they have a stake in the success of the company, they will actually protect customer data and protect the integrity of the systems because they value that experience, so much to the fact that I've actually seen employees turn other employees in because they saw them doing things that they shouldn't be doing. And so in order to do that, I've seen a lot of different things happen inside the space. I've seen organizations have a systematic process to have frontline employees actually engaged in identifying gaps on the customer experience, on revenue and expenses. They've come up with solutions and pilot programs, and they've measured their own results. It makes them have a personal stake in the success of the company, and they don't want to jeopardize that. They've been involved with focus groups, informal leadership development programs. I've seen virtual town halls where leaders take tough questions. In other words, they're approachable. It makes people buy in to that work and home environment. Recognition videos, a lot of praise, but the more I've seen employees engaged, they protect the ability to work at home because they don't want to go back to a regular brick and mortar environment. So technology is important. To your point, you absolutely have to have it, and you're right on the money, Peter. But I believe if people feel that they have a success and that leaders have a stake in the success of the employees, that they're going to do their jobs and protect the customer data.
It's interesting
that makes
when
sense.
It's interesting when you talk with folks from any company that's out there and you talk about work at home as a retention strategy that they're using, and then you begin to ask the question, what part of your company today works from home? And it's funny the answers that you get: finance, human resources, IT, and I think about that. And it kind of makes me chuckle because when you consider the access to information that those departments have versus the customer care side, it's interesting how the security conversation evolves. Do you agree with that, Peter?
I would very, very much agree. And it's funny that you mentioned this, Terry, because, much like you, I talk to organizations all the time, and we discuss how much of the labor force within their company will work either part of the week or the full week from home. And the numbers are getting bigger and bigger. It doesn't matter which economy you're in. Virtual working is becoming a very big part of what we do and how we do it. So it's interesting that there seems to be some resistance around customer experience management, even though it's one of many functions within an organization where individuals might have access to particular data points or elements of information. But I also think it's something that's going on in society. We're changing how we work. We're changing the manner in which we work and where we do the work from. And this is why I think, as you referenced the Everest study, as you referenced the Omnibus survey that I put out earlier, we're starting to see more traction for the business model now, as I think that the change in mindset is permeating all the way from perhaps the agent level or the entry level for people going into organizations through to the executive level, where individuals are looking for different ways and perhaps better ways of delivering on all sorts of different functions within an organization, including customer experience management.
Great, thank you. We've got we're at almost a 24.5-minute mark, so we could talk on security for quite a while, I'm sure, but let's move on to the next question, which again is another one that I see a lot of in my travels. Vicki, I'm going to start this with you. Out of sight, out of mind. How do you manage, engage, coach, and motivate work-at-home employees? Vicki, what are your thoughts on that?
Thanks so much for asking, Terry. Employee engagement takes on a lot of different hats. There's a lot of different things that people can do. I have a list here of a few things that might help our audience. The first one is strategic videos given by leadership. 3 to 5 a week. It's a commitment on leadership's part to be able to engage the folks on the floor strategically with the company goals, whether the videos are talking about growth or new products or new services. Could be holiday ramps, internal promotions, even a specific organizational challenge, telling people, hey, we've got a challenge here, and getting their input on a discussion board. You can also do recognition, read CSAT comments, talk about team competition. I've actually seen interviewing tips and how to write a resume, getting people prepped for promotions internally. I love when people ask me about annual picnics and happy hours and birthday parties. You absolutely can do them inside the virtual work-at-home space. You just set a time. They can do it by teams or by times, and people get their food. They play games, computer games, video games, and they also can play music. They let their hair down. This, by far, is probably one of the biggest things I've seen be truly successful in engaging employees, whether on the clock in something that's a team picnic during work hours or even for happy hour after work. The goal of work at home is to actually evoke the same type of feeling and emotion that they would have if they worked in a brick and mortar. You can do team building exercises by a small team planning the social event or developing slides for a training roundtable. You can work on a process gap together, a small group of people. You can teach your leaders how to use their emotional intelligence and to identify when people need to be contacted. The phone needs to be picked up, and people need to connect with another human being so they get that brick and mortar feeling. So your supervisors need to be highly engaged. And then one thing that I've seen work really well with engagement, and that is that you keep the benefits of working at home in front of people. So volunteers on the front lines will make videos about why they love their job and why they love working at home, and they'll post them on discussion boards where other agents can come and they can have a discussion of why they love their job and love working from home. Peer-to-peer coaching. You can do that in a virtual environment. There's so much that can be done to engage employees. What you want to do is try to mirror what you do in brick and mortar. And if you're stumped as a leader, ask the folks on the front lines. They're already thinking of great ideas that they can do. They're just waiting for someone to ask them. Peter, what have you seen in the space as far as engagement?
Well, you know, it's interesting, Vicki. I think that you have really hit the ball out of the park with what you've seen, what you've been involved with. And I think that your examples are very pertinent when it comes to involving home agents in perhaps some of the more value-add elements, as you say, you know, getting a group of them together virtually to solve a problem or to help refine a process or to help come up with perhaps a new process to make the business better or to make the employee experience better within an organization. Work-at-home agents' profiles, as we've talked about, tends to be somewhat different from individuals that work in bricks and mortar operations. And I think that what you will find, I think anybody will find when they're looking at how best to engage with the ideal or typical work-at-home agent is to give them a challenge, let them work together virtually on that challenge, and that job satisfaction, that intrinsic reward they'll get from something like that will go a long way in terms of retaining them and making them want to do their job even better than they've been doing it before.
Thank you.
I've seen employee attrition slashed and attendance slashed as well because of these engagement strategies inside organizations. Thanks, Peter.
Yeah, exactly.
We've got a minute left here, so I want to move over to a couple of questions that have come in here. So, Vicki, let me start with you on this. How do you deal with training in a work-at-home environment when it's been developed for brick and mortar?
Good question. It's about engaging the employees, Terry. It's about training in bite-sized bits and asking questions to get them thoroughly involved. So speaking for 2 or 3 minutes and engaging them, maybe in more role playing or discussion groups. It's making them be involved, or they're going to lose attention and they're going to be looking at something else when they should be looking at the monitor. It's keeping them engaged. Also, I have found the better trainers are funny, are outgoing. They'll tell a joke, but they pull people in. So the trainers are critical, as well as how they train.
Very good. Peter, in 5 seconds, any other comments on that?
I think that Vicki is bang on in terms of it all comes down to the trainer and the ability for them to convey the necessary information or to convey the skills. That is imperative. We know in general, we've all been through high school, university, but imagine if you're looking to be trained virtually. That is imperative in terms of having the right person that's concise, that can be funny, but that can get the point across.
Good. I want to thank you both for your time today. This has been a great conversation. Just to close up here, an on-demand version of the webcast will be available approximately 1 day after the webcast and can be accessed using the same audience link that was sent to you earlier. Don't forget to download the resources available to you. Stay with us and tune in to some of our other webinars available on demand. Thank you all for your time today. Have a great day, and looking forward to continuing the conversations.